Okay, just threw myself a nice big pity party in that last video um, that I probably won't upload. I don't know. That was more for me than anything else. I don't need to rewatch it. All those things being said, I do have some ideas for game that I want to kind of just at least put in here, and then maybe this weekend I can put my headphones in and type it up, because it's 9:30 and I've been sitting here for a half hour just bitching about the game, about my players, and I just want to get some of these ideas into a space so I'm not losing them or forgetting them. So we'll probably have a travel sequence of some kind to get them through the Cinder Wastes, assuming that that's where they want to go next. Once they get across the Cinder Wastes a second time, they will make their way to the Sea of Fire, and once there, they're going to meet Kindle after the case that Cadaver gives them fails. I never should have given them a case. I should have left it for them to have to find one. It would have given them a reason beyond the mounts and potions to actually go to the bazaar or the City of Brass, their pick. And I could have rolled the bazaar as a random encounter table, which it really should be on my random encounter table, as a possibility that the bazaar finds you on the Cinder Wastes. So there's number one. I need to add that to my random encounter table somewhere. Once they're there and their case gets destroyed, Kindle is going to notice the Fire Genasi would be ship captain and magma miner and entrepreneur. Think like Malcolm Reynolds type demeanor is what I'm going for with him, but a little less chivalrous. That code plays a little more neutral than strictly chaotic good. But anyway, so one of the things that needs to be developed there is the NPCs, his crew. I've got Kindle pretty much worked out, and he has at least 3 other crew members, at least notable crew members, and I'm also thinking about doing a smithy of some kind, but I haven't decided yet, which would make sense, but one of the guys that I have could be my smithy. 2 of them are Fire Genasi, just like Kindle. The other is an Air Genasi, and while not necessarily hated on the elemental plane of fire, like say a Water Genasi or something like that, you know, prejudices do exist within the elemental planes. None of the other planes really get along. Genasi are seen as lessers to the Afridi. And the other Djinns that make up the upper crusts of the elemental planes, the Dows and things like that. So it's a lot harder for them to get work and things like that, especially with an Air Genasi on their crew. Doesn't have a lot of money, but would love to make a name for himself, love to make some coin, and either make a name for himself here in the elemental plane of fire, or make enough money here that he and his crew can find a way off the elemental plane of fire into probably the material plane, and try their hand there and see what they can do. So one of the things that I want to do with the next leg, the next chunk of Rowan's arc, is they're going to go to sea. Audrey has expressed interest in that, thinking that that would be fun, but that was again years ago, when it was taking place in Critical Role in the last campaign, which I do need to go back and rewatch and just try to see if I can kind of pick up how that play sequence worked. It seemed fun, but I'm still worried that it's going to kind of devolve into the travel sequence we had in the Underdark, which really wasn't fun. But they're going to have a number of days while they're out at sea before an event. And that event will be that Kindle has stolen the ship. He greases some palms, changes the name, and steals a ship. And the Afridi come because they control the seas and very closely monitor the mining of the magma from the Sea of Fire. And the characters have kind of already stepped on some toes a few times. And I'm thinking about building that into something. So they've already caused problems with a band that were there in the forest, and then that band was later killed. And now they're going to run into another band on the sea. They're either going to defeat them with the help of Kindle and his crew, or if the ship gets boarded, and I'm going to have to work out some tactics for that, but I think that I'm still quite a ways away from needing that. If they end up getting boarded, Kindle will call for a parley with the Afridi and make a deal. And his deal will be to give up the party. As it will, he will note that some of the members of the Afridi are holding parchment or whatever and speaking to the captain, and the captain making eyes at CV, and he is a very insightful individual, and he will pick up on that, and he will offer them in trade. You know, you take them and you let us go. At which point they'll be allowed to leave. But what they'll probably do, and this isn't in my notes, for the video, what they'll do if there is a parley, then one of the Afridi from the ship will, the first mate or something, will come from that ship to Kindle's ship to make sure that Kindle does take the ship back to port and returns the ship. And the party will be locked up, not with Kindle, with the other ship. And then it becomes a daring escape. And should they survive a breakout and overthrowing the Afridi, that would become the boss fight for that arc, would be fighting the Afridi and surviving the ship, and getting the ship back to port on their own with nobody having any experience in how to use a boat. So they might run aground, something. If they are run aground, then we find Kindle comes back, offers them passage, you know, Jack Sparrow-esque, and is like, look, I had to watch out for me and mine, and you guys seem to have fared just fine, minus the shipwreck. I will gladly bring you back on board, and we can return you back to town, etc., etc. Or still have that business venture. Looks like you dealt with the Afridi that were after you. So that's one way it could go. If they don't shipwreck, then they'll find a case, a very large case, but a case nonetheless, that can be used to gather the magma from that ship. It'll be large, and they'll have to figure out a way to tow it. It won't be as compact as what they could get with Kindle for easier transport, so they'll have to rig something up where they can pull it with their mounts. And then they're going to have to find a way to stow it when they go to deal with the Phoenix. So that's option A. Option B, one of the things that I'm doing to make this a little more interesting, and again, I'm trying to play to Audrey's interests because it is Audrey's arc. And so I'm trying to find things that will interest her, mechanics-wise. For everybody else, there are going to be different elements. So like for Thieves, when we do his arc, it's going to be very RP heavy, or at least that's my plan, is to try and make it very RP heavy because I know that Jake really likes the roleplay aspects and chances and opportunities to use a silver tongue. For Steve and Amanda, it's combat. So their stuff will be very combat driven, and Rayanne's will be somewhere in between. She likes combat, she will roleplay, and so that's kind of the route that we're going there. So the sim dynamic that I have going here is that the party can befriend the crew. And the more they befriend the crew, the less likely they are that Kindle will turn them over. At which point I will do like a die roll or something like that to determine if he turns them over and to what extent, and I'll work out a chart so that there is still some random there, and if they win over everybody, then he won't sell them out. Now, they're only going to be on the... He's not going to risk his life and the life of his crew for people that he's just met. Yes, they're mercenaries for him and are being hired to sort of help him with what he has planned, but it's not worth his people dying for, so that's not going to be something that he's going to worry about too much. He will let them be taken if it means that him and his crew can sail away, and if it's just one Afridi, they can deal with one Afridi. But he will find a way to give them something. Magic item. I think there's, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a chime of opening or something like that, and you ching it and it makes something unlock. So he'll probably slip them something like that to allow them to get out. And I'd have to think about who he could pass that to that might be good at hiding it. Whoever's got some good sleight of hand. We need to get their character sheets. Next time they're here, I may just ask while we're doing all of our chatting and everything, just ask them, hey, can I borrow everybody's character sheet? And then just run it through the scanner, through the feed scanner, so that I've got everybody's everything and I can save it as a document and look it up whenever, because we'll probably be this level for at least another year, trying to find time to play and finish up the game. So things that I need to do before we get too far out to sea. I need names for his crew. Right now I'm at like Zarya or something like that for the air genasi. I have no ideas for the others. But I might take a look at the genasi supplement. They usually have names and stuff that are offered, so I might go with something like that. Instead of something as out of my head, you know? But try and find other words that are associated with their elements and stuff like that. So like the female's name might be Gale. Actually, I kind of like that. So the air genasi could be named Gale, or something along those lines, and then trying to find something for the female genasi and the tinkerer, which I think I am going to go ahead and just make him a smith. And then I need to figure out classes and make little NPC sheets for them for what they're able to do in combat, because they are going to be part of combat. I think. I haven't decided how exactly I want to play that. might just let Kindle be part of it, and he represents them, and the rest of them are off dealing with other little pockets in the combat. Like the 3, his crew is off doing a battle at some other part of the ship, or on the other ship, or something along those lines. But I'm going to have a sim mechanic where the party basically has to win over the crew. And so one of the things that they'll need to do during their downtime, and that is something that I really need to kind of figure out how I'm going to talk that out for the party. I mean, I can come out and just say, you've got a bit of a sim dynamic here to develop some relationships with these people, and those relationships can earn you different perks while you are out there, and go, you know, a great deal towards helping to develop and create some new allies. Something to incentivize them actually talking to these NPCs and developing this relationship with these NPCs beyond my story plug that when the ship gets taken over, if they've developed enough rapport with these members of the crew, then XYZ happens. They don't know that. I can't tell them that, because then that ruins that surprise. So I need to give them some other kinds of small incentives that they can get from the crew in order to better encourage them to have those conversations and to develop those rapports. You know, maybe the Air Genasi, if they befriend her, will offer them a trinket, and each of the people that they befriend offer them something that will help for when they do get captured, and then maybe they learn that as they befriend people. You know, Gale gives them a Misty Step, you know, or something like that. You know, not necessarily a spell scroll, but some mundane looking item that has a charge of Misty Step in it, so that they can poof out from wherever they are, or some form of dimensional travel. I don't know, but I need to. That's another thing that I need to do, is I need to figure out what incentives there are to befriend these guys beyond the norm. I may even just tell them, the more of these guys that you befriend when it comes time to fight the Kraken, the more that will actually participate in the fight. So if you know, access to more numbers, you know, they will be in the fight, you know, to some extent, doing something in a different place, probably shoring up the ship and manning the defenses of the ship itself. But it's an extra person in combat if you actually befriend them. So the female Genasi would probably be some kind of, I don't want to make her a caster, because a fire caster isn't going to be very good, but she could be like a light domain cleric, and have some heals as well as some pretty potent combat magics. And I'll need to find a model of, you know, something in there for a CR. I'd probably make them like a CR 12. I don't know. 10 to 12. They're going to be useful, but don't want them to overshadow the players. And then it'll work like a turn base. So each round of combat, the crew goes, and based on however many people they've acquired, the crew will basically, ooh, I like this, I hadn't thought about this, so here we go. The crew will work as lair actions, like what a dragon has. At the top of the initiative, a lair action kicks in a dragon's lair or a boss's lair or whatever. Well, on the ship, the more friends that they have, they develop lair actions for the ship, so that if they do find themselves in combat, rather than having to add a whole nother person to play, if they find themselves in combat, at the top of the initiative, depending on who they've befriended, will determine which kind of lair action they have access to. And then they can decide as a party, which lair action do you want? You know, and we can go around the table and just Alright, Audrey, you get to pick first. What lair action do we have going with the people that you've unlocked? And bam, it comes into play. So maybe if they're friends with the Genasi chick, she can give them, I don't know, she casts a spell, gets a gale of wind blowing that they, for the round, have 5 extra feet of movement, or, can jump 10 feet higher, or they're under the effects of a feather fall. So if they fall off of the mast, they slowly drift down back to the ship rather than crashing the 20 or 30 feet from whatever mast that they might be fighting from, or something like that. Um, the light domain cleric might provide them a fire shield to the first person that takes fire damage that turn. The Tinkerer may give them the opportunity to fire the cannons at whatever it is that they're fighting. I like all of those things. I see no reason not to use them. And if they befriend all 3 of the crew members, then they unlock Kindle. And then I get a character to play. And Kindle will actually fight beside them. And I'll bake him a good, CR'd character. I have no idea exactly what his mechanics would be. Something roguey is where I'm at right now. But he might be some kind of multi-class. He might be some kind of rewrite. Who knows? But they get Kindle as an ally. And unlocking him as an ally has its own perks. He joins the battle. He'll probably have his own lair action that I can work up, like maybe pack tactics gets unlocked if you have Kindle. So maybe I'll make him, what are they called? Oh, they have a name for it in the Sword Coast guide that I cannot think of. Give me one sec. Okay, so I found it, and it's the Mastermind, so maybe he'll be a Mastermind rogue. It's not quite what I wanted. I like the idea of this Master of Tactics component, so maybe I'll just give him that piece and make him something else. Maybe he can be a swashbuckler like Rayanne or some other rogue archetype. There's tons to choose from now. I'm sure I can find something that fits a pirate of the high seas. But anyway, so yeah, that's kind of how I want to play it, is that by befriending them, each person that they befriend gives them an opportunity to open up a lair action. They have an opportunity, they get one opportunity with each of them. They can spend some time talking to them and whatever, and they can only try to win over one person per day. And if it fails, then they have to try again on the next person and the next. It doesn't mean that they can't win that person over. It's just that if they fail, the DC goes up the next time that they try to win them over. And then they can decide, do I want to keep spending my time on Gale, or do I want to move on to, I don't know, whatever her name's going to be, Cinder, which I'm sure Rain will get a kick out of. So something like that. And then they have to try and win them over, and it'll be just like a resurrection ritual. They'll have to tell me what they're doing, how they say it, and what they're using, based off, and it'll be a skill check. And then based off of that skill check, I'll determine, okay, here's what you're trying to do, here's what you need to roll for me, and then based off the number, we'll determine whether or not they make a new friend. In the event that they do end up getting boarded, even with the lair actions, even if they've got everybody, even if Kindle is an ally, he's still going to sell them out. Because again, at the end of the day, it's about his people. And if they've become friends, for Kindle, he knows what they're capable of, and is fairly confident that in selling them out to these Afridi, they're going to be okay. And again, like I said, he'll probably give them an item that is, a mundane ring or something, or a coin. Gives them a coin that when he flicks the coin, it makes a chime sound, and that chime will be able to unlock the door. And then on that coin will be the face of, what's his face? I can't remember his name now. Gem Jar. Gem Jar's face will be on the coin, it will wink at them, and then the coin will lose its luster. It won't be quite as shiny after it does the clicking. And when they take a look at it, it'll have Gem Jar's face, he'll wink, and then the face will kind of, the coin will tarnish and just become a regular coin. But instead of Gem Jar's face, when they look at it again, it'll have the face of Tamora, the goddess of luck. And when he flicks it to them, he'll like flick it and tell them good luck. Or palms it into their hand, good luck. So he needs to have good sleight of hand. That's where we're at. And see, even now, after that bitch session, even now I'm excited again. But I don't want to put in the time. It's 10 o'clock at night. But I have some ideas now, and I've got some direction for what I need to do next. We will just do a single day travel sequence to get them there, rather than rolling it for all of the days, and that's how we can hit fast forward, is that we can use maybe use our travel mechanic that we used in the Underdark just to kind of fast forward things a little bit. We'll do a regular one single day random encounter, see what they find and see what they interact with, and then we can just use dice rolls to just kind of narrate the rest of the travel. One combat will take a while, depending on the combat. I'll need to double check my random encounter sheet and make sure I've got everything filled in and ready to go, and that whatever encounter I give them is hopefully something big and fun. I don't know that I'm going to get to the nightmares and all of that kind of stuff yet. And I don't even remember what we had during game last time from nightmares and stuff like that, so it's been too long. So anyway, don't want to get back onto that track. So anyway, those are the things that I need to do. I need to develop the NPCs. I need to develop, I'm going to use Matt's statistics, you know, 3 things about them, how do they feel about the party, and what's one thing that they, you know that they aren't willing to part with, what is something that they hope to gain. I don't remember what all of his breakdown are, but I'm going to take a look at that again, because it's good advice on how to write an NPC to make them a little more dynamic. And so I'm going to do something like that. I'm going to get little character blocks just like I did for everybody back when we were in Gauntlgrim. The notable NPCs page. I'll start creating some notable NPCs for them. That's my next step. My next plan is to do that while trying to find time to watch Matt's travel sequence to Eor so that I can do something similar once we get on the ship, while incorporating my sim mechanic and giving them an opportunity to try and befriend these people. I need to develop lair actions, which I can add to their notable NPC card. And maybe I'll just make that a mechanic from now on, that if they befriend an NPC, NPCs, even though they're not going to participate in combat, depending on how powerful they are, they may be able to provide a lair action of some kind. Even a weak NPC might be able to provide something. You know, one player for a round, one player can take the help action as a bonus action, or something like that. That signifies getting aid from the NPC. It doesn't have to be anything big. It can be something small. Because right now NPCs don't really have import in the game. It's just somebody that's being dragged around, and my party doesn't care for that. So that's where we're at. That's what we need to work on next, is developing out that while watching the travel to Eor. The air date was somewhere in October because I remember watching it when I stayed home for my birthday, and it wasn't live. I'm not sure if it was a rebroadcast, but it was my birthday not this year but last year, 2020. So we'll go back and I'm going to try and find that episode while they're at sea and see if we can figure that out, because then that's the next step, is while developing out these characters and their lair actions, which hopefully won't take too long, I then need to develop my travel sequence for while we're at sea. They will be boarded or attempted to be boarded within 4 days of travel, which gives them a chance to hit every NPC at least once, and then one other time. I think I'm going to do it just like drawing those cards in the Drizzt game, where you take a set of cards and you shuffle it up, and you know that at least 4 cards down is nothing. And maybe that's how I'll do my random encounter too, is that when we draw a card, whatever comes up, that's the encounter that you have for the day. So if it's a 4 of diamonds, here's what you get for a 4 of diamonds. If it's a 5 of hearts, here's what you get. And then the boarding will be, I don't know, it can be all numbers, and then the boarding can be a king or a joker or something like that that matches the deck. It can't happen any earlier than 4 days out, so there'll be 4 cards on top, and then it'll get shuffled in with the other 6 cards. It'll be one of the other 6. They all get mixed, matched, and shuffled. 4 cards put on top of that, and then the boarding will come up at some point in that sequence. And they don't need to know what the Joker is, just that the Joker exists. I like that idea. I wish it wasn't 30 minutes into my video, but I like that idea. Alright, that's enough. I'm done. Good night.